Hello.
Hi, Daniel.
It's been a minute, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. Yeah, it has.
But we talk a little bit on the phone. That's been nice.
Yeah, I enjoy our friendship.
Likewise. Does Patty know about this?
Yeah, Patty is in New Zealand, so
Okay.
she doesn't care about this because
You're-
she's really having a good time.
okay. All right. Good. Well, should we just jump right in? Are you ready for this? Virginia, Verge, what is the meaning of life?
Well, I asked my daughter what the meaning of life was, and she said it's nothing. It's not important to me. Haven't you ever even heard of nihilism?
I pronounce it nihilism, but yeah.
Oh, okay.
Would your daughter consider herself a nihilist then?
Well, then I asked her that, and she goes, well, I don't know. See above where it says, I don't think about it.
Yeah. Well, funny enough, I did a similar thing where I had a friend over on Saturday night, and we were sitting around a fire in the backyard, and we'd already had dinner. And I thought, okay, here's a good fireside chat. I told him that you and I were gonna have this conversation today, and I said, "What do you think the meaning of life is?" And he looked at me, and he was kind of like, it was a very dismissive answer. Very similar to your daughter's spirit about it, I would say. And he said, the meaning of life is what you make it. And I'm not inclined to disagree with that, but I think there's a million different ways to run with that starting point. So the way that he intended it was kind of like, you're overthinking it, bud. Just, it is what you make it.
I'm inclined to agree with your friend. The other thought I had about this was we are in a place and in a time where we have the luxury to think about it, to contemplate it, to not just be hoeing the tomatoes and getting the chickens fed. So I don't think it's universal. Whatever the meaning of life is, I don't think it's universal.
Yeah, it's a luxury, the position we're in, to have
Yes.
conversations like this, really put some time into these kind of ideas. I wonder, just off the top of my head, if that gets us closer or further to the meaning of life.
Yeah.
Having the time to sit around the way I do, right? The diseased version of a human being that I am.
Yeah, I don't know. I definitely think that we bring whatever meaning we have to our lives. And people will argue with me about how I spend my time or what I do or what I don't do.
Mm-hmm.
And if I thought they were right, I'd be doing what they're doing.
But when we say they, each and every person you talk to probably means something a little bit different, even with the same starting point. So, for instance, not to make too many assumptions about your daughter. Well,
yeah, I wouldn't make many assumptions. But what I said to her was, I don't actually understand nihilism. I haven't studied it, but I would assume that I believe the opposite. I think everything matters. I think it matters when I pet my dog. I think it matters when I pick up a worm and throw it back in the grass after a big rain. I think all that stuff matters.
Yeah.
And
semantically, you could say, well, if everything matters, then nothing matters.
There you go. And that's a tautology, boys and girls.
There it is. You know what? You introduced me to that word, tautology. I had never heard that. I'd always said like circular logic, circular reasoning, all that stuff, and I'd never heard tautology, and I had to look it up. And now I've got it in my vernacular. Is that a good word to use?
Well, you've done a fine job of defining it as well. Just now, so everybody knows.
No, hopefully that helps. Well, okay. Everything matters and nothing matters. It's a little paradoxical. When I started thinking about it this morning and writing, I realized that maybe a good place or a good thing to talk about for a minute right at the top is perhaps a definition. What do we mean when we ask that question, what is the meaning of life? What does the word meaning mean?
Surely we don't have to define that.
Well, here, let me help you
So
out a little bit.
why, I guess, why wake up in the morning and not commit suicide? I mean, is that what what is meaning?
Yeah.
Why be here? Why exist? Is that what you're saying? Or
I hadn't even gotten that far. I was just trying to clarify a little bit what we mean by the question by looking at that word meaning. And I suppose when I think of the word meaning, the first synonym that would come to mind is intention and or purpose. So what do you intend? What do you mean? What is the purpose? What does it mean? Right? So when somebody asks, what is the meaning of life? My assumption is that we're talking about the purpose of our existence.
that's a different question to me. So I
Well,
guess we did need to define it, because
right.
when you talk about the purpose, what's the purpose? I feel like that assumes an awful lot. That assumes that there is a purpose.
Maybe. Yeah.
And I'm not sure that that's true.
In a teleological manner. Teleology kind of assumes that there is a purpose. It's like,
Yeah, I'm not going there. I don't think we can make that assumption.
well, what did you mean? What did you think I meant with the question, what is the meaning of life?
Well, I agree with your friend who said we all bring our own meaning to life, to our
Uh-huh.
own lives. And so I was in a very self-absorbed place and went, oh, yeah, well, I can talk about what life means to me and what it might mean to others and what it might mean to you. That
Yeah.
I can, but if you say, what's the purpose of my life? Well, I'm not sure that my life has a purpose.
So you don't see your existence serving any purpose?
I didn't say that. When you
Okay.
ask me what the purpose is of my life, it sounds like you're referring to my existence and perhaps something greater than myself that has an idea about what I'm supposed to be doing here and a purpose. And
Well, would you feel comfortable saying that there is something greater than yourself? Leave the rest of that sentence off, but just the first half of what you said, the notion that there is something greater than ourselves. How do you feel about that statement?
not great.
there's no, there's nothing more important than me. This is all about me.
No, again, I think that we project I think that we as human being animals project importance and meaning onto other things. I think nature's more important to me than me. I think the whole earth is more important than me. Mass numbers of people are all more important than me. But I don't think that's where you were going with it.
Well, I'm not trying to lead you anywhere right now. I'm trying to just kind of parse this out. Just go, hey, what exactly are we talking about, and what exactly are your feelings? Because just knowing you as a person, you've never struck me as a selfish person, and so anybody that's not selfish, at least at a subconscious level, recognizes that there's something bigger than themselves that they should be serving. No?
I, it's so hard to talk abstractly about things that are so intertwined with human projection and
Yeah.
and assumptions. I think that's the thing that in the last couple of years I've really come to at least think about, but not act on in any way. That there's a lot, almost everything we do has an assumption in it, and the assumptions aren't necessarily true. They're just something that happened.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you an example.
Please do.
I was thinking about this morning. When I was a child, I would take my dad a cup of coffee as he read the newspaper and had his bowel movement in the morning. And it wasn't weird or anything, and I just take him his coffee, and it didn't happen a lot. I probably did that maybe 10 or 15 times during childhood. It's not something happening every day. I was thinking about it today, and I thought, oh, that poor man, he was probably having issues. Why was he sitting on the toilet reading a newspaper? Maybe
Yeah.
that wasn't just, oh, this is how I center myself in the morning and this is where I like to have my coffee. Maybe there was something physical going on that as a kid, I just, he never complained about anything and I didn't notice it. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
why would I? Anyway, I'd made an assumption for years about it was one way. And I thought about it today without that assumption, and it opened my mind to a whole different possibility of what was going on. Yeah, I don't know which is true, but that's what I mean about assumptions are underlying a lot of what we're thinking.
Mm-hmm. I got to drop quotes. I always do. It's from a nice nin in Seduction of the Minotaur. She said, "We don't see things as they are. We see things as we are." It was originally taken from the Talmud, I think. But it's very true. And even everything that I've read, in modern neuroscience indicates the same, that the way that we direct our attention determines what we see.
Yeah.
So if that is true, then the way that we direct our attention takes on a certain import, doesn't it? It's important.
Well, it is to me. That's why I direct my attention that way. But it's
Right.
not important to others the
Okay,
way I'm directing
but
my
we could
attention.
stretch that out. It's important to you.
Mm-hmm.
It's also important to me. Why is it important to you?
Well, I was
I'm,
raised by my parents to be kind to others, so I try to do that. And I
yeah.
like having a good time, so I try to do that. I was raised to be respectful. A funny thing, somebody in my generation who worked out at Bridgeville Elementary many years ago as a secretary, and her parents were both atheists. And she said she just didn't understand why people would say to her, "How do you know how to behave? How do you know the difference between right and wrong?
Mm-hmm.
If your parents are atheists and you're an atheist, how would you even know?"
Right. What do you think of the notion of cultural Christianism? Have you heard this before? To be considered a
Well,
cultural Christian? And just to illustrate that a little bit for anybody who's listening, as far as the way I take it, this society that we live in was founded largely on Christian values. And so even if we don't consider ourselves Christians, many of the values that we've taken on are the product of Christian beliefs originally.
I think maybe this is not quite what you're saying, but I used to call it secular Christianity. So that there's people that celebrate Christmas and they celebrate Easter, but it has nothing to do with God or what traditionally the religious aspects of those holidays would be.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's a little different than what you're saying. You're saying the underlying assumptions, like don't kill.
Sure. Yeah. The reason I brought it up, the story relayed about the girl that grew up with two atheist parents, and people would ask her, how do you know right from wrong?
As a grown woman, she's like 40.
Right.
People are like, how do you know?
Right. Well, I think the superego, according to Freud, I believe, it's the voice of essentially of society and authoritative figures in your life as you grow up. It becomes embedded in your psyche, right? So it is this sense of right and wrong that you understand because you've been exposed to in this particular culture. And that's why I brought up cultural Christian or cultural Christendom. It was like, well, okay, we can be atheists here, but from day one, any of us that were born here and grew up in this particular culture, we've been saturated with a certain value set.
Well, I think since people started just hanging out together and not moving around, well, even probably before that, there was a value set. Like, I wish I would have reviewed Hammurabi's codes before
Oh, I
before
don't know
this.
what that is. What? Say that again.
Hammurabi's codes
I've
from
never heard.
Mesopotamia. Well, now I really wish I would have reviewed it. But there was a code of laws. Hammurabi came into power. I think it was around Mesopotamian times, and he there was a pillar in the middle of town or a wall or something, and he carved in the codes that people needed to abide by. What I was going to say is I wish I would have compared those Hammurabi's codes to the 10 Commandments, because I think they're very similar. And people are going to crucify us in the comments if they're not similar and there's only one or two that overlap. But then we'll get a comment, so that'll be all right. The,
Comments are wanted. Good.
That's right. Straighten us out on anything, please. The one I remember the most is that it's like there was a lot of retribution. Like if your son made the other guy's barn burn down, then they could come over and burn down your barn. It was a very eye for an eye kind of society. So I think that this idea, even in Skara Brae up in the Orkneys that are from Neolithic times, so we're talking 30,000 years ago, you've got people in communities. I think that they had an idea. If people are going to live together, I can't be killing them. I can't kill that guy if if we're going to live together, because it ends it right there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that some things that we consider Christian beliefs are possibly older than that. And I'm not a biblical scholar by any means.
Nor am I.
It seems to me that the Old Testament is really not much different. Well, our Old Testament is the Islamic Old Testament, is the Jewish Old Testament, all the religions of Abraham. We have the same Old Testament. And I think that all those ideas that are in there are very old, like from probably Mesopotamian times or before. Because we don't know what was going on before everything started getting written down, and it didn't start getting written down until there was the cuneiform writing, and so people could have believed that stuff for a long time. It seems like the thing that Jesus said when he came along was, he was like, forgive your neighbor, as opposed to an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. And I have found that to be healing in my life. So that if I don't hold a grudge, I seem to be a happier, more useful person than if I'm just walking around all the time mad about this, mad about that, mad about what the government's doing, mad about what that person did, mad about that traffic driver. I can't hold all that stuff. I can't hold all that anger and hatred. I mean, I could, but I don't think I'd be very happy.
Hatred corrodes the container it's carried in.
Yeah. It's a lot like battery acid. Be careful where you put that stuff.
To circle back here just a little bit, so, all these ideas about how to live.
What was the laws? It was the laws that he was going to enforce.
I'm just trying to say it's something like, what's in the Old Testament with the 10 Commandments. Same idea. A code to live by, right?
The difference was Hammurabi was going to cut off your hand if you didn't live up to it, whereas Moses, when he gave the 10 Commandments, you were going to get punished after you died.
Yeah, well, yes and no. I think in the Old Testament, and again, neither one of us should be talking about the Bible.
We'll get a comment.
We're going to get a lot of trouble. But as I think I understand it, I think there is more of an eye for an eye aspect to the Old Testament, and then it's the New Testament where things shift a bit.
Yeah.
Right? But I could be entirely wrong.
No, I think that's right. And the New Testament is about Jesus.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, where I was trying to go is, if we have these codes, these emerging ideas of how to live, ultimately what is emerging, I would suppose is an awareness for something that's greater than any one self, and that actually,
yes, I think you said it perfectly in your sentence. You would assume that.
Yeah.
Because I'm saying the people in Skara Brae that are in this Neolithic, they're living together, there's like 8 rooms, it's subterranean, that they're not necessarily doing it for any reason other than it's benefiting them and their life for some reason.
Directly. That they can do it entirely selfishly. It just leads to a better life.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm inclined to agree with that. Even today, I'm someone that doesn't especially believe in altruism, the idea that anybody does something
Oh,
entirely.
I pronounce that word altruism.
Okay, I don't know how to pronounce it. I know how to spell it, but that's as far as I get. Anyway, my sense is that everything any one of us does is ultimately it's motivated by self. It makes me feel good if I behave this way or that way. And I think we can take that all the way to Mother Teresa. The reason she did all these supposedly altruistic acts were ultimately because it made her feel good. She felt good about herself as she acted that way. I don't mean to I have no intention of dragging down Mother Teresa here. I'm just trying to make a greater point that I don't think anybody ever really does anything that doesn't serve themselves personally at some level. If we don't feel good about
Well,
something,
no, wait a minute. Time out. Time out. You're talking about somebody that has agency over their life. Well, I think you're making the point that most people act in their best interests, which is probably true. But
well, they're not necessarily acting in their best interest, but they're
they're getting something out of it.
they're acting according to their wants and desires. It makes them feel good in some manner to behave in a way, even when somebody behaves in a way that others would call altruistic, that ultimately the reason they behave the way they do is that it serves them personally somehow. It makes them feel good, whether it's actually good or not.
Well, and then my point about agency is there are people in situations in the lowest caste in India or during slavery where they had no choice about what their actions were. People that don't have agency over their life are limited. It's very limited what their choices are and what they can do. But there are people that choose not to have agency over their life because maybe they don't see that they have the power, or maybe they don't have the power to make decisions or act in a way that
Well,
would benefit them. I'm thinking about maybe battered wives at this point, like, or battered people. It doesn't matter who, that are in a unhealthy relationship where they don't perceive that they have any choices of what to do.
I think that every person ultimately has agency, whether they recognize it or not.
The reason I bring that up is to your point about whether they are acting in their own best interest.
This is going to get me in trouble for sure, but let's run with the battered wife idea here. So it would seem at surface level, what you're saying sounds right, but I think that's maybe just a surface level analysis of what's going on. So if I'm following you correctly, we would say that she's definitely not acting in her best interest by staying with a man who's beating her up. Is that's
I
essentially
would
what?
say that falls within my belief system.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with that. I agree with that. But all I wanted to say was within the psyche of that woman, not that I'm an expert in Stockholm syndrome, but it's a common thing, right? Where people that are in situations like that actually start to develop a certain affinity for their captors or abusers, which seems really odd from the outside because they're definitely not acting in their own best interests, but within their own mind, they've found a reason to justify it. And so that justification deep within their psyche, right or not that it's right or wrong in the real world, but that within their own mind, they found justification for the abuse they're enduring, and they stay there.
Yeah. I would say that this is nothing I understand.
Fair enough.
I've been lucky enough that people throughout my life have treated me with respect and care and love, and not everybody gets to be that lucky. And
That's true. That's true. If you thought back, can I push on that for just a
you
moment?
do whatever you like.
Because I wonder if you were to really think back about early relationships you're in, it seems like almost everybody when we have our first romantic relationships in life when we're younger, inevitably we end up in unhealthy relationships in one way or another.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's pretty common for I assume, again, I think it's pretty common that people stay in bad relationships. They stay with the devil they know. Surely you've had some experiences like that early on, you
Well,
know.
I did. And I even had some strangers or acquaintances or whatever that did inappropriate things when I was a kid. But some of those people were kids. And I have a lot of forgiveness for kids, even teenagers, that are involved in relationships and they're like trying to figure it out and screw up. And
Yeah.
it's not good. It's unhealthy. And luckily, I'm not in those relationships anymore.
Well, it's a really healthy choice, like you illustrated a few minutes back, that ultimately, to carry animosity in you hurts you, right? It corrodes the container it's carried in. So being forgiving, letting go of those feelings, ultimately serves you better in the long run, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think so. And also, my memory for those kinds of details, just the way I'm wired, it's difficult for me to remember past events in any kind of detail. And the amount of times I'd have to run something through my mind to hold a grudge would
Mm.
be a lot of work. And so I used to,
That's a superpower.
I know, it really is. I used to be prideful about it. I used to be prideful and think, oh, I'm so forgiving. Oh, I'm so loving. And I finally got to a place where, gee, I just can't remember crap. I think I told you about the gal I was riding in a long car ride with. She reminded me about all the reasons that I should hate her. And she was so glad that I didn't. Don't run those all by me. Don't try, because I can get mad like anybody else.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
ask my kids, I'll tell you. They'll
yeah.
straighten you out. My daughter did say I have a superpower. I know this is divergent, but she told me this.
Superpower.
She's told me this weekend I have a superpower. It's like a Pokemon power of confusion. I can just confuse people, and then I move on. She said, I'm trying to explain a game to somebody, and Mom will pop in with things she thinks are helpful, but no, she just is confusing.
That's another. You have two superpowers then.
Yes, yeah.
Inability to remember details, so you don't carry any animosity, and you can confuse anyone. Any other superpowers we should know of?
Those are the only ones I know of currently.
Do they impart meaning to your life?
No, neither one of them.
Really? You don't get any kind of gratification from walking into a room where your daughter's trying to explain a new game to someone and just bewildering completely baffling the whole group and walking out.
I'm so confused. I don't think I'm being confusing.
Okay. All right. And then
I'm
you don't
out of touch
remember
with
later.
reality. I that's
Later you don't even remember any of the details. So
that's right.
you did,
I
yeah.
I'm so out of touch with reality. I'm quite happy.
Are any of us in touch with reality?
Yeah, it's hard to say.
Yeah.
Our own reality and what we
Yeah.
bring to it. I'm not currently enamored with the political atmosphere in Washington D.C. right now.
Have you ever been enamored with it?
Oh, there have been times I've been happier. But that's not what I'm going to base my entire life and existence on right now, because I don't think I can muster a Senate race or do something that's going to make a difference there. And
Mm-hmm.
so my choice is to make a difference where I live, try and do something here
Yes,
that I have control over.
because it brings meaning to your life to do so,
Yeah.
to make a difference.
I don't know if it makes a difference. I project that it does. you
I
know.
think it does, and I was just grabbing on to what you said right there, trying to bring us right back around to the meaning of life. That making a difference is important to you.
Where you got me off track on the meaning of life was when you said there was a purpose to it.
I didn't mean to say that there definitely is, but when we start with the word meaning and we try to define the word meaning, one of the first synonyms that pops in my mind outside of this context, just broadly, the word meaning can be synonymous with purpose. And so when we ask what is the meaning of life, are we asking what is the purpose of life? Another synonym would be intent or intention. So are we asking what is the intent of life? I was trying to just kind of parse out the question a little bit and just go, hey, what exactly are we talking about? And it did seem to reveal that we were looking at things a little bit different. Because I do like to think about things in teleological ways, but I don't know what I think. That's part of the reason I like to entertain it, is I'm still playing with it.
Well, so do you think there's a purpose to life?
If I was to answer the question just right off, what is the meaning of life? I would sound very...
I didn't ask you that.
Okay.
I asked you
again.
what's the purpose of life?
Like I said, I like a teleological way of looking at things. My sense is that there is a purpose to our existence, and that purpose lies in meaning itself. That it is the attention that we bring to the world that creates meaning where otherwise there could be none.
Well, I liked everything you said except the P word. Yeah, I think that we all bring our meaning to our lives, or choose not to.
Yeah.
It hurts me to see people in despair, and I feel so sad when somebody's in despair, especially if that despair has been heaped onto themselves by themselves.
Mm-hmm.
People that have really suffered and been through terrible things. I can understand their despair and respect their despair way more.
I can get in trouble for this too, but my sense is that any sense of despair is ultimately self-inflicted. That life is suffering, or at least that suffering is unavoidable in life. That's just the nature of things. Shit happens, and we have a choice. We don't get to decide what happens to us, but we get to decide how we respond. And it's your response where you can go into despair and depression, which I've definitely spent a lot of my life there. That did not serve me well. It's a victim mentality that shit just keeps happening to me and it's unfair. But ultimately, that just locks us into a victim cycle. It doesn't give us any power to do anything about it. When we start taking ownership, realizing that no matter what happens to us, we always have a choice about how to respond. And there's always something to be gained or learned from every experience, no matter how horrible. And I know you love it when I quote Viktor Frankl. So for this particular conversation, I think we have to consider Man's Search for Meaning, directly addressing this question: what is the meaning of life? I love drawing from him as an example because at least a good portion of his existence was so horrible. He survived internment during the Holocaust, not only at Auschwitz, but they moved him around from camp to camp. And what a horrifying thing to have endured. And he was one of the few that survived. The first half is the story of his experience. And then the second half is an introduction to logotherapy, which was his own mode of psychotherapy that he developed. At the time in psychotherapy, Freud and Adler were two of the main voices, and Freud suggested that the will to pleasure was the most fundamental drive in a human being, and Adler was the will to power, very Nietzschean. And then Frankl said no, that those are drives, but they're not the most fundamental. They're within something bigger. And he suggested the will to meaning was the most fundamental drive to a human being. I went on and on there for a minute, but it's fundamentally it's that idea that life happens to all of us, and it's what we do with it. And then to echo where we started with my friend, saying, well, life is what you make it. It's like, yeah, that's exactly the point that Frankl's making, but perhaps a more optimistic kind of manner.
I was fortunate enough about 3 weeks ago to meet a man that had been overseas and had a bomb had gone off on him, and he caught on fire, and he over 80% of his body was on fire, and he ended up living. His face is quite disfigured, and he doesn't have ears, and of course he doesn't have hair, and it's all burned off. And so anyway, his journey, unbelievable in terms of perseverance and not giving up. And he talks about being in despair, but being able to come through that, and that friends helped him through. And I'm not sure what his belief system is. I think that might have helped him as well. Anyway, now he goes around and he speaks in different venues, and he has a book out, and he's just really.
Do you know the name of the book?
I should know the name of the man, and I do know the name of the book, but they're laying around written down somewhere else.
Well, send them to me later, and we'll post something on screen.
Okay, I even have a picture of the two of us together. Anyway, he was really incredible, and his story was incredible. And I love a quick wit, and this guy was just funnier than anything. I guess it's just impressive. I don't know that I would have made it through what he went through. So we didn't all get the same life. We don't all have to fight the same battles.
Yeah, it's definitely. I've been very lucky overall. It's hard to have these kind of conversations with proper respect for people who've gone through truly horrifying things, right? I can say anecdotally that it has certainly made a huge difference in my life as I've adopted responsibility. I know you love that word, but ultimately, I think that's how we serve ourselves best, is by adopting responsibility for the things that happen. Like, look for the role that you've played in any of the
Now
things.
wait a minute. Yeah, I'm just thinking about this guy I'm talking about. He didn't need to take any responsibility for that. I don't think he needs to take anything a responsibility. I think where, if you want to use the responsibility word, he chose to be responsible for his own recovery.
I agree with the example here that you're giving, that ultimately the responsibility we have is in our responses. Like that we choose how to respond to the things that happen to us. We don't actually have control over what will happen to us. We just get to choose how we respond. Now, that being said, I do think there's an exception to that, where I think that by and large, especially in the society that we live in today, we
in the
actually,
United States.
yeah, that we have quite a bit of freedom and autonomy in this culture, and the vast majority of us play a huge part in the things that happen to us, much more so than we like to admit to ourselves. And I say that as someone who was especially guilty of that. I had a particular career for a long time, and I did pretty well at it, but I also felt like I got shut down and shut out in a bunch of places and was mistreated. And I leaned into that feeling quite a bit. I played the victim. I thought it was unfair. And any of the stories on my mind right now, if I recounted them, generally people would agree, like, yeah, that's not fair. How can, anytime I've shared stories of the things that happen to me in the music industry, that's how people react. Oh, that's not fair. And I carried this idea for a long time that life should be fair. Like, subconsciously, I'd never thought directly about it. And it was actually, I fell in love with this girl about 7 years ago. I was completely enamored with her, and we were spending time together. And one day she just looked at me and with like the most, like disgusted face, was just like, where do you get this idea that life's supposed to be fair? and I needed that to happen to me. I felt so small in that moment, so tiny, so, like, this woman that I just adored in this moment. And, I wanted her to think the world of me. And she said that, and she was totally right. And it's stuck with me. It's been 7, 8 years now since that happened. And I'm so thankful she said that. Yeah, that's absurd. Life is not fair. It's never going to be fair. And it's a waste of energy to be insisting that it could be somehow. It's just not going to be. What I got to put my energy into are my responses. Like, what can I do with the things that happen? There's got to be something good I can make. Lemonade from the lemons, right?
Yeah.
Anyway,
I was talking to my nephew yesterday, and he says, your strength is that you don't wait till it's perfect. You just go. Just go. And
that
you
is
always
another
do that.
superpower.
That you just you're you're completely half baked and you're just running out there doing all this stuff. He says, but you do more stuff than anybody I know, but none of it's perfect, but all of it's stepping in a direction. And
I really love that about you too. And
he said that's
I
very hard
really,
for him.
oh, it's so hard for me too, and it's so important. I don't know where this quote came from, but it was something I grabbed onto maybe 20 years ago because I already knew, like, I was a perfectionist, and it was destroying me. An imperfect plan today is better than a perfect plan tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's huge. It's definitely something to live by. And your the way that you influence me, just being in my life and watching the way that you move, is
My
really
many
good for me.
imperfect plans, yes.
It's really good. Well, the thing is, the whole point is that there is no such thing as the perfect plan.
Yeah.
So if you keep waiting for perfect, you just spend your life waiting. It never happens. It's never going to be perfect. Everything's always changing.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've got 3 superpowers for you now.
Just, yeah, I don't know about that. But anyway, people are scared about what others are going to think about them. And when we stop caring what other people think, not completely, but I think to the level that some people do, it's
Well,
free.
I think that's one of the most amazing things about getting older is that we become less inhibited as we get older. Maybe not everybody, but I think on average we just start letting go of that. Stop worrying so much about what everybody thinks, and we start hearing our own muses. Right?
Yeah.
What do I like? What do I want?
Yeah.
Because for a long time, I think most people, especially like when we're teenagers, we're really worried about fitting in with our peers. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that could be carried too far also, because if we lose too much touch with reality and what society's doing, they put you in a home. They put you in a padded
Maybe
cell.
it's a nice home.
That's a yeah.
I think padded walls could be really good for me. So,
Yeah.
well, circling back here real quick,
Yes.
you specifically said when we were talking about politics, the state of politics right now, that you would prefer to put your energy into places where you can make a difference. And then we added to that, we said, because that brings meaning to your life. Was that all fair so far? Is that right?
Well, we all know life's not fair, but that seemed like a reasonable place to go
But
with.
that, yeah, life's not fair, but the statement I'm
Yes.
trying to make is fair enough.
Fair enough.
Okay.
I really enjoy people. I really enjoy interacting with people. And when I am helping other people and I see that they are benefiting in some way, monetarily or joyfully or in knowledge, yeah, I feel
That
great.
brings that brings would you say that brings meaning to your life?
Yeah, I'd say that's one of the things that I care about. Yes.
It's kind of perfect for where I wanted to go. One of the things that came up in my writing about this subject this morning was this question: can we find meaning without sharing. And I can continue here a little bit to elucidate a little. There's a quote that I love from Dr. Elizabeth Loftus. Explanations and answers diminish the profundity of the experiences we have set out to explore. In truth, we do not want our questions answered. We want our experiences shared.
Yeah.
That really resonated with me, like, I think it was like 5 or 6 years ago, and it's stuck with me since. And this idea that really meaning is directly tied to sharing. That if we're not able to share something with another person, I'm not sure that it can be meaningful. Go for it.
Put a personal pronoun on that.
Well, I think there always has to be a you or a them. There has to be some person for meaning to exist, which is, when you asked me about, do I believe that there's, purpose? My answer to the meaning of life is that our role is to create meaning where there would otherwise be none. So there always has to be a you or an I in order for meaning to exist. That's my supposition.
Well, taking that to the nth degree, let's imagine a coma victim.
Okay.
And they're lying there. Well, I guess they are interacting with the people around them, but they're not being able to express themselves. People around them are expressing themselves to the coma victim.
Sure.
I can imagine that the person in the coma, because I don't know what happens when that's happening. I can imagine them being in despair or being in stasis, but I can also imagine them having some kind of meaning in their life as they're listening to what's going on around and thinking about it. Unconscious maybe is better. I don't know. I know that I like to share with people and talk with people, and that brings me joy. And I have people in my life that say, I don't quit interacting with me. I'm fine.
Yeah.
And that's different than who I am. And so I derive meaning, like when we talk about stuff, I think about it and I change my mind sometimes afterwards. Sometimes I change my mind about the thing I was most adamant about when we were talking, because I've sat with what you had said or what another person has said and think, oh, I see why they're thinking that. But there are people that would rather not.
The way you're describing your mind, that's what I think the most brilliant minds are composed of.
Confusion? Yes, I think so too.
Yeah. Well, it's an openness to reconsider ideas and to realize that just because we see things one way right now, there's no reason to hold on to that. We should be open to new information and reconsider. If we're not, then we're not growing.
Well, I think that Reverend Stevens said, or maybe it was somebody else said, give up your desire to be right and you're going to be way happier.
That's huge. That's one of the biggest things. Another thing that has changed in me since I would say in the last 7 or 8 years, I realized, life is not fair and never will be. And then that I spent most of my time concerned about being right. And that was not serving me. It was not serving anyone else either. And when I let go of that and realized, you know what, actually, I want to understand things. And that required letting go of the sense of rightness. Just go, you know what, I'm gonna put my energy into trying to understand, and who cares about being right?
Yeah. There are a few things that I don't want to understand. I feel like if I understand them, I might be able to participate in them. How someone can do horrific acts of violence on other beings or other people. I don't want to understand the mindset of somebody like that. I need to just keep that at a distance because I don't want to participate in that in any way.
Yeah. That's a good observation there. I hadn't thought about it quite like that. Although there is a prominent psychologist I've been reading lately where he actually makes me a little uncomfortable in exactly this regard, that there are certain things that maybe we shouldn't be okay with. And he takes it pretty far. And he's got some amazing ideas. Quote, it's Dr. John DeMartini. Many powerful ideas. One of them is anything that you can't have gratitude for is baggage. Anything for which you can have gratitude is fuel. And I love that approach. It echoes everything we were talking about earlier in saying that, life happens. It's not going to be fair. We don't get a choice in that. We get a choice in how we respond. And so if your response can find gratitude, and even in the worst of experiences, then it becomes fuel. It's something that carries you forward. Whereas if you can't find any gratitude in yourself for something that has happened, it's just baggage that you end up carrying. It weighs you down. Anyway, I really like that idea, but the reason I brought him up is he's got some really wonderful ideas, but any ideas taken to the extreme get a little scary. And I think what you were talking about right there is a great example of how maybe I don't want to relate with a sociopath too well.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't need to judge them. I don't need to say they're good, bad, evil, indifferent. I don't need to be God. I just
maybe we do from a
don't need to
societal level.
understand it.
From a societal level, though, we have to, right? We have to protect our. If we were talking about our kids, I know neither one of us would hesitate for a second to bring down the hammer on someone threatening our kids, right? So we do have to bring some kind of judgment. I think that's one of the ideas that I lean into that can make a lot of people uncomfortable. Is I don't think that there's such a thing as a judgment-free existence. I think we have to make judgments about everything all the time.
That's what our whole day is about.
Yeah, but I've certainly run into a lot of people that are really uncomfortable with that. And I understand the discomfort. I can come across as a very judgmental person. Largely, I think because I play devil's advocate a lot. No matter what you say, I have a tendency to be like, well, actually, there's this too. And people will take that and they'll be very defensive as though I'm attacking their beliefs. My intention, at least now, not when I was younger. I was a real punk when I was younger. My intention is to understand, to try to understand things. And I think the truest or truer understanding takes into account a very wide array. It's a full spectrum of things. It's this inherent duality to everything too, that you don't have good without bad. They're somehow all tied together. If you really want to understand, in quotes, then you have to be able to look at things from the opposite end of what feels right.
Yeah. You've said a lot of things, and I can't remember all of them. But
likewise.
But what I was thinking was, Roger Taylor said that some portion, and his hypothesis was that 1/4, but I don't think it's nearly that high, but 1/4 of gifted people are amoral. And I don't know what percentage of the whole population that is, but even if you try to explain to them the difference between right and wrong, it's nothing that is Roger Taylor's idea. It's nothing they can ever internalize and act. They can mentally say, oh, I won't do this because they told me not to do this because they think it's bad, but it never gets internalized. That's one thought. And then the other thought was about, I believe it was the Russian orphans that weren't touched and held as much. I forget what time period this was. They developed attachment disorders where people in the United States were adopting the orphans, but the attachment never happened because there were so many babies. They were just like swaddling them, put them down, get the other one. They were just doing the basic needs of changing the diapers, swaddling them, feeding them. And so it was harder for those people to perhaps derive meaning from their life in the same way that you might, because they didn't feel that connection to others.
Yeah, that's really interesting to think about. I mean, we can never truly know what it is to be in someone else's shoes, right? We can try to imagine what it might be like, but something like that example you just gave, I wouldn't even know where to start. I wonder how they express themselves later in life, if they led a fulfilling, meaningful existence as far as they were concerned, or did it cause them problems? My assumption is that it probably caused them great harm that they never quite got over through their whole life. That's my assumption.
Well, something that I learned from behavioral social scientists is that, like, if a kid's misbehaving
Mm-hmm.
and an adult reacts to it, there's some micro behaviors that start to happen where sometimes the adult can initiate the behavior just because they're expecting it to happen, or there's these micro behaviors. And I think that it's difficult when there's someone with a detachment disorder and then you're dealing with that, and then you get into behaviors that aren't necessarily, unless have some outside help, that you might not be helping it along. Yeah, I think that was probably a struggle for people.
Well, I asked you a few minutes ago, can we find meaning without sharing? I wonder if you look at it personally, your own behaviors, some of the things that you've said. It sounds like you're saying you do find meaning in sharing, right?
Yes, and I think, yes, absolutely I do. And I was trying to brainstorm 2 or 3 places where there might be people that would have meaning in their life, but maybe not through a shared experience. I think most things in life are a bell-shaped curve. I really have drunk that Kool-Aid, that
Yeah.
the majority of people are going to be in the middle and find meaning through communication, sharing with others.
The idea that you brought forward about someone in a coma, to me, even if they were aware, if they were listening, they could hear that people around them were hoping for them to come back too, but they had no way of interacting with those people whatsoever. For me personally, I don't think I'd be able to find any meaning in that for myself. I think I would die of loneliness.
It seems like it would really be dependent upon your community. If I was in a bed and I had a community of people around me, not just administering to my physical needs, but somebody was coming in and reading a chapter book a couple hours a day to me, or they were playing music, or people were coming in having conversations around me, that would make it more tolerable. If people played podcasts for me,
Sure, yes.
uh, where you're part of a conversation, you're like sitting at the table, but you don't have to participate to be thinking about what they're saying. So if I had a community of people that were nurturing me in that way, I think that would be, while awful, would be survivable.
Survivable so long as that there was a termination point to it, right? That ultimately you couldn't go on like that indefinitely. The idea would be that you would get through it, that you have some entertainment to get yourself through, so to speak.
I didn't perceive that stuff as entertainment. So
Okay. I
my
didn't mean to say that in a pejorative way. I didn't. That
right,
was not my
right.
intention.
But that's specifically why I didn't mention television or having the radio on. Is
Right.
that if somebody, I guess the music would be entertainment for me. For somebody more musical, maybe not. But when I'm listening to a podcast, even the inane people that I enjoy listening to, they make me think about things, or I think about things from their conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so then I'm having brain activity that I would say this, or perhaps it should be this. Oh, he's wrong about that. That's for sure. And she's right. Might be things they think. Or reading a book, enjoying an audio book and thinking about the characters and thinking about the characters' motives and why are people acting in that way.
But do they only get your mind going to the degree that you can do something with it?
This one thing I listen to, the Unmade podcast, is pretty inane. I like it, and I don't really talk to anybody about it because they don't really say anything of substance, but I enjoy listening to it.
It still informs who you are. So the person that you are walking around in the world is informed by the things that you put in your head. We've talked about this before. Yeah. It's so important to be very deliberate about what you allow into your head, because we take on the characteristics of our environment, like it or not.
I guess those things would make that situation tolerable. I don't know for how long. And I think that would be very individualistic for all of us. Probably not as long for me, since I'm somebody that really likes to share with other people. But I have plenty of people in my life that enjoy time alone and prefer time alone.
Well, I'm one of those people. I need a lot of alone time, but I've gotten a lot of alone time. My ex-wife wanted me to be alone. She definitely wanted to get rid of me. And that worked. I spent a lot of time alone, and I thought that's what I really wanted, and I did. That alone time has served me really well in a number of ways, but only to the degree that I can resurface now and share something with the world, like share something of it, and feel like I can put my energy into something meaningful.
Not everybody feels that way.
I think you're right. I know you're right. And I struggle with that. Part of the reason Viktor Frankl's ideas resonate with me so much is I want to believe that the most fundamental drive to a human being is that will to meaning. But it doesn't look that way with everybody, does it?
I don't think so. Until recently, I didn't really understand how important the drive for power or the drive for money is. I think that's something that's really only come to me in the last 10 years, that there are people that's enough for them. If they can be powerful in their situation, or if they can amass the most money, and it's like, how many sandwiches do you need?
Mm-hmm. Well, and Frankl would say that what you're saying is true, but that it's housed within a bigger bubble that is the will to meaning, that ultimately a person like that finds their meaning through the power, influence, money they amass.
The word that came to me just now is control, that they just want to have control over others or control over their own life, or I'm not sure what all.
My sense is that that's definitely part of the human condition, right? It's the desire for control.
Personally, I want autonomy. So I guess on some level that's control over my life and what I'm doing. But I don't really feel the need to go over to the neighbors and boss them around about.
Nor do I.
So I don't know that control,
Well, it's a sense of control over our own lives, like you said, autonomy. Which, interestingly, that's where my conversation with my friend went around the fire the other night too, where he started off by saying, the meaning of life is what you make it, and then I tried to push him a little bit and say, okay, great, yeah, that's fine, but ultimately, whether we recognize it or not, each one of us has our own unique set of values, a value hierarchy, if you will. And there are no right or wrong set. It's just everybody's got their own unique set.
As I'm getting older and I'm looking at more time behind me than in front of me, what I want to do and how I want to spend my time and what brings meaning to my life, and like what you were saying, outlining what it is exactly. I need to get that together, because otherwise, in the end, I'll be sad. I'll be going, but I wanted to. And I've been thinking lately that I really need to kind of examine that and not just do stuff because somebody wanted me to do it or somebody asked me to do it or somebody else thought it would be a good idea. I need to really look at what it is I want to do so that my life, whatever's left of it, whether it's just today or if it's this week or if it's 30 years, has meaning to it.
I think a lot of it is being honest with ourselves. Hey, what's actually important to me? Because my life is going to end one day, and I want to feel like I honored the things that were actually important to me.
Yeah, and it seems like that shouldn't be a hard question. What's important to me? Shouldn't be a hard question, but it really is, because as you were saying at the beginning, the first thing that comes up can be very superficial and maybe feel good and maybe seem like what's important, but it's not. That's not
Yeah,
really the crux of it. And
right.
have to look a little deeper at what really is behind that. What makes that seem important?
Absolutely. I think ultimately a value hierarchy is a great way to look at it, because those surface level desires, those things that come and go, they exist in your value hierarchy, but certainly they're not at the top of the pyramid or the bottom, however you want to look at it.
No,
Right.
but sometimes they're the flashiest, so they're easier
Oh,
to spot.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, and that's why it's so important to stop and take a good look at it, to ask ourselves those questions. Otherwise, we serve the expedient things as opposed to the truly meaningful ones, the ones that would serve us long term and hopefully leave us feeling fulfilled at the end of our lives, with a sense that our life had meaning.
Yeah. I tell you what irritates me. It irritates me that what I really need to do, I'm not doing this currently, thinking about it, is I need to spend an hour a day stretching.
I do too.
I need to, I want it's like this is my car, and I gotta like, I'm not going to get another car. I don't have the money or the wherewithal to get a different car. This is my car I've got, and I
Yeah,
need to just take care of it. And it's not what I want to do. It
I'm so
doesn't
with
bring
you.
me joy.
I'm so with you.
And so I gotta get over that, or I'm going to be sorry. I
Yeah.
can see that intellectually. I know it.
Yeah.
And I just need to.
Because if you were to take a good look at your value hierarchy, your physical health is probably a pretty high priority.
It should be. And the only reason it's not, I think, is for people that haven't had a lot of trauma in that area. You know,
Mm.
if we've been able to just like skate through and not had heart attack or a stroke or a
Well,
whatever.
my sense is you'd be hard pressed to ever encounter a person where that wasn't high up in their value hierarchy. It's just that most people haven't had a lot of reason to think about it. We just take it
Yeah.
for granted. We're in pretty good health, so you don't worry about it. You never really investigate your values, and then you end up later in life going, "Oh, I probably should have devoted a little more energy to maintaining this body that's deteriorating."
Yeah. I'd like to avoid regret on every level. I
Yes.
I don't see how that serves anything. So
I agree. No regrets. Absolutely.
yeah.
I do remember the thing I was trying to remember
I
earlier.
knew you would.
So my friend, ultimately, in his response, when I pressed him and pushed toward a value hierarchy, he said autonomy. And I thought that was interesting because that is the same thing that seemed to come forward for you right away as one of your top priorities. And I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about that personally. Maybe it's one of the things I take for granted, that I've had a lot of autonomy in my life. When I was younger, as most kids, we don't feel like we have much control or autonomy, and we really want to get out of our parents' shadow and find our own place. And I so I certainly experienced that when I was younger. But ever since I left home, which was pretty young, I've been my own person. I think I've just kind of taken it for granted for the most part. I don't think about autonomy nearly as much as maybe I should. And the same thing's true for physical health, too.
Yeah. Don't shit on yourself.
Yeah.
Being a teacher at the school that I worked at, I had a lot of autonomy within the California State Framework guidelines. I could basically do whatever I wanted. That was just such a gift.
Hmm.
And I feel for people that go to a job and they're having to do what people tell them constantly. It's almost like they didn't get out of that childhood situation that you just explained because people are still bossing them around. And
Mm-hmm.
after 31 years of bossing kids around, I can tell you this, nobody likes to be bossed around.
I'm not so sure about that, but
Well, most people don't like to be bossed around.
I hear you. And certainly you have, like you said, you have a lot of experience with kids. I do not mean to discount what you've observed. But at the same time, there are so many people who actually don't do well with a lot of freedom, if you will, that they need very defined limitations, constraints around what they're supposed to be doing to actually feel better and more productive. And I'd make the argument that general condition is true for all of us. It just varies in how much limitation we need.
I would say that's the failure of the American school system. In a lot of school situations, kids are supposed to sit down, shut up, and you're supposed to do what the adult in front tells you.
Well, we teach
Our
conformity.
teach conformity and create wonderful factory workers. And so what you're telling me is that we've done a really good job of that because people don't feel comfortable making their own decisions or moving forward with their own impetus.
Mm-hmm.
So
Another thing I was thinking about this morning that we didn't touch on was the difference between an egocentric society and a sociocentric society. Egocentric being focused on the self, identifying as what's important is my personal autonomy, perhaps. Whereas a sociocentric society would be more like an ant colony where everybody serves a purpose in this greater whole. They don't think about their individuality. They find their meaning in their service to the greater whole, the greater entirety. So maybe part of the problem in our country is the education system. I would think so. I'm inclined to say so, but maybe it's not limited to that. Maybe it's also a reflection of an egocentric society as opposed to a sociocentric one.
well, I would argue that neither one of those societies is better than the other. They're just different. And in general, our public schools are doing a great job. There's part of me that said that other thing kind of tongue in cheek, but I do think that it does cause uniformity. But I see a lot of public school teachers, you can tell you hit a nerve here. A lot of public school teachers really working hard every day, doing their best to try and make everything work and the world a better place. Not everybody. I'd say there's
Yeah.
about 10% of teachers that are in it for the summer, but that's not most of them.
Yeah, that's important to remember. I don't have much experience with it, but the few teachers I've had in my life, I had a couple decent ones.
Well, and maybe your son has too. I don't know.
I hope so. I
Yeah.
hope so. I don't feel like he's had as meaningful a relationship with any teacher that I'm aware of as I feel like I had with you. I had a high school English teacher named Mr. Blue. That was also a very meaningful relationship to me. Maybe those are the only, you and him were the only two, which I feel lucky to have had one. So to have two,
Yeah.
that's really something. I think it's played a huge part in who I've become. And the self-confidence I have, I think is a product largely of the relationships I had with you and Mr. Blue. So the role of our teachers, it can't be overstated, the importance, I would say.
Yeah.
So
Thank you
yeah.
for those kind words, and I'm glad that I can make a difference. I know there's times I screwed up and people I hurt, and I don't even know who they are or what I did to hurt them. But because everything's perspective and perception, You're just people are out
Well,
there like loose cannons, and I know that there are people that uh,
well, no, nobody ever gets it 100% right.
right.
We all make mistakes, and the thing is, you just keep going. You just you keep at it, and you do it with a smile on your face, and your intentions are good, and ultimately, even when you make mistakes, actually, arguably, when we make mistakes, we learn the most. That
Yes,
our
I agree with
mistakes
that.
are the greatest opportunities. Mistakes and failures are the greatest opportunities for growth. They show us exactly where we need to grow. No room for regret in that
That's right.
regard.
You just acknowledgement, I think.
Yeah, yeah. And I'd bring back that terrible word responsibility. Acknowledging what happened,
Yeah.
acknowledging the role that you played in it, which is another way of taking ownership, responsibility, realizing, oh, I could have done this differently and gotten different results. I think that's part of acknowledging what has happened at certain points in our life.
Well,
And
I
then,
think I'm gonna stop. Some of what I was saying is we damage people without even realizing it.
yeah.
That we because of an offhanded comment or the way our face was or something that we don't even know. Just not necessarily in the classroom, just in life, in general, bumping into people, we give off a negative spin on something, not because we felt anything about it, but because of the way it was taken in by that person
Mm-hmm.
and what was going on in their life and their spin. And so I don't think that your responsibility argument fits in that. That this person going forward hurts this person without realizing it.
Well,
That's not on me, that's on them. There were plenty of times that I screwed up and hurt people, and yeah, I can take
but
responsibility for that.
I don't think it's ever black and white. Thing is, we do play an active role in the things that happen.
Well,
And
yes, and we call that life.
Well, the role that we play, if we don't acknowledge it, to use your words, if we don't acknowledge the part that we've played in the things that have transpired, we're never going to grow or improve or direct us direct us towards some better becoming, however you want to
Oh,
define that.
now I liked all that.
Okay,
2 thumbs up.
so we just axe the word responsibility and we're good.
Well, that's got some real baggage to it, that word.
And for you, it does. For me, it doesn't. And for me, it's been absolute freedom that has come with it. And that's another one of Viktor Frankl's ideas. He looks at the inherent duality of all things, and he suggests that when people want freedom, it's directly tied to responsibility. That those are
Yeah,
that
yeah, Victor thinks that. When
you.
I spoke to
I
Victor,
I
he was
think that.
saying that.
I think that too. Well, hey, this has been great to do this again. I hope I didn't wear you out. I think we're both a little more tired, a little more
Yeah,
tired this time of day than we are in the mornings. So
yeah, I think I definitely that's true for me anyway. But I had a very productive morning, so it's like, oh, okay, I got all this stuff done, so that was great. Um,
that's awesome.
yeah, and I certainly enjoy talking to you, and I'm always amazed when I look at the clock and go, well, it's
Way
over
to
an
go.
hour. Well, what do you
Well,
know?
let's just hope and pray that we can have a very similar effect on the people that tune in to listen, right? And
Yeah, that time
hopefully,
flies for them. Otherwise, they only
hopefully,
listen for 8 minutes, and then
time
they're out.
flies, and hopefully they take something meaningful from this. Hopefully what we've shared can bring some meaning to their life. It's brought some meaning to my life. How's that for a little tie-up?
That's great. A nice little bow.
Yeah,
Yes, you know what? This is important to me. I enjoy spending time with you, and any time we spend together feels like it should be on my hierarchy of meaningful things.
I love it. Same here.